All right, guys. So I'm going to show an article to you here. This is about the colossal failure of Build Back Better and how ultimately it died and it went nowhere when we had assurances that the bill or some form of the bill was going to be passed into law. So just to remind everybody up front, here's what was in Build Back Better. This is the original bill, $3.5 trillion bill. Child tax benefit, universal pre-K, paid family leave and paid medical leave, tuition-free community college, lower prescription drug costs, dental, hearing, and vision under a Medicare expansion, housing, home care, major climate money, immigration, lower Medicare age, Obamacare expansion, increasing physical supply, too many climate and clean energy plans to summarize. Beefed up IRS tax enforcement, taxing the rich, taxing corporations, fees on polluters, Medicare negotiations. This bill, if the original version was passed into law, would be the largest transformation of the American economy since the New Deal and FDR. This is serious stuff. This is actually legacy-defining stuff. But not only did we not get this, we didn't get a watered-down version of it. We got Dickie McGee's axe. We got nothing. So Jeff Stein of the Washington Post, along with Tyler Pager, that's an awesome name, he got the behind-the-scenes story of how it went down. So let's go through it, and then I'll tell you aspects of it that, a lot of it is interesting and factual, but then there's parts of it or implications of it that I think are just dead wrong. So they say how the White House lost Joe Manchin and its plan to transform America. A breakthrough seemed close. It was mid-December and President Biden had been negotiating for months with Senator Joseph Manchin over Biden's sweeping plan to reconfigure the American economy. House Democrats had already approved $2 trillion for Biden's Build Back Better agenda, and pressure was mounting to push the measure through the more narrowly divided Senate. But first, Biden had to overcome resistance from Manchin, the Senate's most conservative Democrat. On December 14th, the pair seemed to make progress. Manchin had offered to support a $1.8 trillion package, a step toward the White House position, while Biden agreed to jettison a budget gimmick that Manchin believed disguised the true cost of the plan. The tenor of their conversations was peachy, according to one person briefed on the talks, and the two sides agreed to put out a statement saying they would continue talking. So let me pause here, because him agreeing to a $1.8 trillion package, the White House thinks, well, that's a giant win. We like that. But $1.8 trillion is way below the $3.5 trillion that was originally being discussed. And this is getting to, by the way, the heart of what I think the problem is. Because I don't think Biden really wanted the full $3.5 trillion package. I think Biden would have been more than happy with a $1.8 trillion package because he's a relatively conservative Democrat. Not as conservative as Joe Manchin, but conservative enough to not want $3.5 trillion in a reconciliation bill that is, that totally transforms the economy. They continue and say, incredibly, it all fell apart. The statement drafted by White House aides 2 days later named Manchin as the focus of negotiations. White House aides sent a draft of the statement to Manchin's office ahead of its release. Manchin's chief of staff responded by asking the White House legislative director either to remove the senator's name or to add Senator Kyrsten Sinema. The White House issued the statement anyway. The president had personally signed off on it, but Manchin exploded, texting a senior Biden aide that the decision was unconscionable and extremely dangerous at a time when liberal activists were targeting Manchin's family with protests. So this is the crux of where it fell apart. This is the story being given from behind the scenes as to why it fell apart. Now, what they don't say is, I think Joe Manchin was looking for any excuse he could to blow the whole thing up. And he was going to make a mountain out of a molehill no matter what. And so there was a statement that was released that was like, yeah, we're working on the final negotiation here with Joe Manchin. He doesn't agree. We're going to whittle it down and then we'll pass something. And he was like, ooh, how dare you? This is putting me and my family in danger. No, it's not. What are you talking about? Again, he was looking for any excuse to blow it up, and he just used this. So they continue and say, 3 days later, Manchin declared his opposition to the legislation on Fox News. I remember we covered that. The negotiations never recovered, and Build Back Better, encompassing years of Democratic policy aspirations to reduce child poverty, transform the nation's housing system, enact new early education programs, tax the rich, and more, was effectively dead. After his Fox News interview, Manchin turned his phone off, which meant he missed a call from Biden, who left a frustrated voicemail. When the pair connected, the conversation was heated and tense. For several weeks, Biden and Manchin did not speak again. In private, the president criticized Manchin to aides, expressing doubt about his intentions. Well, no shit, Joe Biden. No shit. This is what we've been trying to get across to you from the beginning. This guy does not have pure intentions. He's not an honest actor who has ideological disagreements. More on that in a little bit. As lawmakers return this week to Capitol Hill, talks have been rekindled between Manchin and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer over a proposal likely to be far less substantial than the nearly $2 trillion deal Manchin and the White House seem to be moving toward sealing last year. With Republicans hoping to win control of Congress in this fall's elections, Biden may never have a better chance to leave a lasting policy legacy. So they go on in this piece to say, Biden, after a cooling off period, gave to Manchin, hey, here's my proposal on the issues that you say you care about and you want to pass in a bill. And those issues, by the way, are comical. It's like deficit reduction. It's American energy independence. It's a list of things that are nothing like the original Build Back Better. I think the only part of it that was maybe good was some increased taxes on the wealthy, but not nearly enough and not nearly the right kind of increased taxes on the wealthy. But Biden gives Manchin a proposal on that. Manchin responds by, number one, not accepting it. Number two, not responding. Number three, saying, I'm going to go work with the Republicans now. Are you sensing a pattern here? The pattern is Joe Manchin just has no interest in passing anything with Biden and with the Democrats. No interest. So what this story gets wrong, they get a lot right about how it was going on behind the scenes, but what they get wrong is that Joe Biden appears to take at face value everything Manchin says and does. I guess there was a period where he questioned his intentions, but it looks like he's like, oh, did I offend you? What did I say? And there's even a quote where Biden says something goofy like, we need a cooling off period because as my mom used to say, the Irish and the Italians get pretty passionate and heated. It's old school, folksy eugenics Joe Biden, like, you know how those Italians are. But the real thing that happened, and I'll show you guys this now because this is the most important. This is what happened. Companies and executives donated nearly $300,000 to Manchin's campaign after he rejected Biden's Build Back Better bill. Now, it wasn't even when he officially rejected it, they did that, although they did give money then too. As he was going to the media and slapping down provision by provision, hey, I don't agree with this, hey, I don't agree with that, hey, I'm not sure I could vote for this, hey, we really need changes. Every time he would go do a media appearance and be like, well, gosh golly gee, I'm just a reasonable centrist from West Virginia, and that's why I don't like any of these provisions that are really popular from the American people. Every time he did that, he would get money. They say Senator Joe Manchin's campaign raised nearly $300,000 from corporations and executives in the days after he publicly opposed President Biden's spending, climate, and social safety net package. Some of the executives who donated to his campaign also previously contributed to Republican leaders' political operations, including former President Donald Trump's. Manchin's campaign received contributions from companies such as Facebook, now known as Meta, CVS Health, Lowe's, Anthem, Cigna, Boston Scientific, Cheniere Energy, and Emergent Biosolutions. So Manchin is the number one recipient of oil and gas money. So, of course, he's not going to do any, climate change legislation. And he's one of the top contributors of, or recipients of big pharma money. So he's not going to support the lower prescription drug prices. So Joe Manchin played Joe Biden like a fiddle. He played him like a fiddle, pretending to be an honest, good faith actor, pretending they will negotiate over the specifics and we'll get something done, Joe, as Manchin said repeatedly. And then at the last minute, pretending to be offended over something he probably wasn't offended by, or he was minorly offended by, and saying, because of that, I can't work with you. So he's a liar. He's a liar. Now, we're talking a lot about Joe Manchin here, and there's a lot to say. Massive corrupt goon, liar, etc. But really, at the heart of this is the failure of Joseph Robinette Biden. Because I don't think he really cares that much about getting the original bill in place, the $3.5 trillion bill. I think what Joe Manchin, in his heart of hearts, wanted, he liked the idea that Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin were pushing back on the $3.5 trillion. I think Joe Biden wanted a watered-down $1.8 trillion bill, or maybe $1.5 trillion bill. You strip the best provisions out of the reconciliation bill, and you do some watered down thing. And the reason I think Biden likes that is because Biden is a relatively conservative Democrat. Not as conservative as Joe Manchin, but relatively conservative. But what he didn't count on is Joe Manchin totally abandoning ship, and totally stabbing the entire agenda in the back. He didn't bank on that. And so when push came to shove, was Biden going to pull an FDR or an LBJ and use the stick instead of the carrot? Nope. And that's how Joe Biden failed. And that's why his legacy is non-existent. Because he could have, when we got to this point, Joe Biden could have said, you know what, I'm done playing around. I'm done playing around. Your daughter was directly involved in price fixing and price gouging for a pharmaceutical company. We have her caught on emails. Guess what? My Justice Department is now investigating your daughter, and she's probably going to go to prison. Now, truth be told, she should go to prison either way because she violated the law in an egregious manner. But, Joe, if you're reasonable, maybe we can make a deal. Maybe you could vote the right way and do the right thing, and then maybe I'll be able to get your daughter off, and there won't be jail time for her. But that's up to you. That's up to you. Now, you want to go cry to the media about how Big Bad Biden's being so mean? I think I'm being the nicest guy in the world. I might save your family from jail time if you vote the right way and do the right thing for the American people. That's me being a wonderful guy. But if you want to go cry to the media, go ahead and cry to the media, but you're also kind of admitting that your daughter's a criminal in the process. So, he could have done that. He didn't do that. Because he doesn't have it in him. He's folksy Joe Biden, the backslapping, backroom deal-making, let's have a beer politician, and he got nowhere with it. Remember, when Joe Biden ran, the argument was, you have to vote for me because of electability. I'm the only one who can beat Donald Trump. I'm the only serious candidate. And the other argument was, look, when I get in office, the fever is going to break on the right. And a bunch of the Republicans are going to want to work with me, and we'll get stuff done in a bipartisan fashion. Not only did the Republicans not want to work with Joe Biden, also, he couldn't even keep Democrats in line. Democrats. So he failed. His whole theory of change turned out to not be true. The bipartisan backslapping dealmaker is totally ineffectual and gets nothing done. The last time he had an approval rating over 50%, he cut checks for $1,400 to people. Ever since then, he's been on a steady decline. Now he's below Donald Trump's approval rating. Gee, I wonder why. And he's going to continue whining and bitching and moaning and pointing fingers elsewhere. Well, guess what, Joe? You could have played hardball with Joe Manchin, and you didn't. You chose not to do that. You could do executive orders legalizing marijuana and abolishing all student loan debt. You don't want to do that. You're choosing not to do that. You could do standalone bills through reconciliation. Take provisions of Build Back Better that people say they support, that the politicians say they support. So universal pre-K, for example. Okay, do a standalone bill through reconciliation on universal pre-K and dare Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin to vote against it. They said they're for it. Okay, so let's get universal pre-K through there. He's not even doing that. He's not even doing that. So Joe Biden is useless. He's beyond useless. The real president in this instance is Joe Manchin. And he played Joe Biden like a fiddle. Joe Biden is a failure. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.